Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about using thrusts to steal fencing times. Okay. Now, before we start talking about that, we have to kind of define what fencing times are. And basically, a fencing time is a distinct action, okay, with a sword or with a weapon. Okay. So basically, if I start off with this guard here, right, and I make a strike, that's one fencing time. Bringing the sword back, to reset, that's also a fencing time, okay? And then striking again is also a fencing time. So basically, to make two strikes on the same side in that same spot, I have to use three fencing times, or three beats. Sometimes I'll refer to it as beats. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we got three fencing times. Now the thing to also be aware of that attacking from one side to the other side basically saves one fencing time. So if I strike here, okay, so basically here's one fencing time. Striking to the other side is basically one fencing time, because basically when I'm in this position here, I'm already halfway wound up to go to the other side. Okay, so striking from one side to the other is saves a fencing time. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether you're going high or low. Like if I do a middle house to the leg and then go high up here, that's two fencing times. As opposed to if I was to do, let's say, two middle house to the leg, one reset. The reset also counts as a fencing time, and then strike again, 3. So basically it's 1, 2, 3. Okay, so having to reset, basically, by resetting we lose one fencing time. Okay, so now let's talk about the thrust. Okay, now if I start my thrust from back here, let's say I come in and I make a thrust, that's basically one fencing time. Okay, one beat. However, if I strike, one fencing time, and I just pull the sword back and then just thrust from there, that's basically a half beat or a half fencing time. So by making a thrust, I'm basically stealing time. Okay. Okay. Now this is going to become very important, because here's the thing. Going back to what I said a minute ago, if I strike on the right side, it is quicker for me to strike somewhere on the left side, okay? Because I'm only using two fencing times. What that means is that if I strike on the right side, okay, my opponent knows that I can get to the left side quicker, okay? So what that means is that after he takes a block on this side, so let's say I have my shield here. Okay, if I take a block on the right side, right over here, what that means is it is faster for my opponent after I block on my left side. It is faster for them to get to my right side, so I can almost anticipate that the shot's going to come to my right side after they attack my left side. Okay, if they decide to double up on my left side, what that means is they have to basically strike, reset the sword, strike again. So because now there's three fencing times involved, basically I have more time to see it. So I take the block, okay, I see that they're resetting to their shoulder, okay, and now I know, because they're resetting, now they can go right or left, but I've had time to see that. Okay, so the important thing here is it is faster to attack the opposite side, after you attack. Okay, and let's talk about now how thrusts can change that, because let me put this down for a second. The thrust can be done in basically half a beat. It doesn't matter whether I'm attacking right or left. So if I attack on the right side, I can pull back, thrust. That's actually if I'm attacking to the left side, pull back, thrust. Or if I'm attacking here, again, I can pull back and thrust. Okay, so it's a little fast to do that, but it does something more than just it's more than just an issue of that it's a half fencing time faster. What it also does is it gives us the opportunity to rotate our hand left or right. Okay, because remember what I said, if I strike here, okay, the fastest place for me to go would be to that side. If I strike here, I pull back and I thrust. Okay, during that half beat, right, I can choose to thrust palm up, or I can turn my sword and thrust palm down. Okay, so if I strike on the right side, pull back, thrust, palm down, I'm now in a position to go to the leg. Okay, so and I can just as easily change it if I strike here. Okay, if I pull back, palm up, I'm now in a position to go to the left side. So basically, when you strike, if your palm up, you're going to the left side. Okay, if your palm down, okay, you're going someplace on the right side, and your opponent is not going to be able to really see which way your hand is pointing, whether it's palm up or palm down, because first of all, you're behind the shield, so your shield's hiding that. With this Type X sword, it's really long. It's long compared to like this Type 14 that I like to use. With the Type 14 sword, basically, when I strike, my hand basically is near the edge of my shield. Okay, it has to be because the sword is basically a little bit shorter. The other thing is with this type of a sword, basically my strikes, I'm fighting a more sword forward guard. Okay, and I'm basically using more upper body. I'm also basically closing my hand to generate power, so I'm generating power a little bit more differently. So all that's happening a little further up. With the Type X sword, because this sword is heavier, I need to basically power my blows from back here, and this is very typical of what you see in a lot of medieval artwork, where basically they're in a guard like this. Okay, and the reason is because they're using a heavier sword. They need to power the blows from back here, and the thing is that from back here, once the shot starts going, I mean basically it's all the momentum is created from back here, and once I throw the sword, it's just going. Now you'll also notice that my hand is a little further back because I have a longer sword. What that means is that as I throw my cuts, you can see how my sword is further back. Just because I have a longer sword, I can keep my hand further back, so I have a little bit better hand defense with the Type X. Okay, so with this type of a sword, I'm powering my blows from back here. The shield is kind of also hiding whether I'm palm up or palm down, or if I twist it and go to the other side. The shield's also going to hide it, just because all the work is happening a little further back. Okay, and that's going to be significant. So with this type of a sword, if I'm here, if I want to double up on the right side, I'll pull back, turn the sword palm down, make my thrust to steal that, that fencing time, and then from there, attack the leg. Likewise, if I strike to the left side, right, and I want to basically double up on that same side, I'll pull back for that thrust, make that thrust, and then I can basically tack on the same side. So the thrust allows us to steal basically a fencing time. I'm going to use this sword just because it's a little bit lighter, a little bit easier. A lot of times you'll see me using this sword in a way I'm really cheating. But basically I can hold this sword out here, for a long period of time, and it's easier for me to demonstrate. Whereas, see, that other sword, that Type X sword, this sword does not want to stay stationary. Okay, this sword is either going to be, either rested on my shoulder, okay, or in a high guard, ready to strike. And then once it gets going, it's just going to keep going. I'm not going to sit there and basically try to use this like a rapier, or, because basically you really don't have good point control. I mean, right now it's very tiring on my wrist to hold that out there. Okay, with this type of a sword, because it's basically more tapered, a couple of inches shorter, it's easier for me to basically just hold this out there for a long period of time, and I can demonstrate stuff. So that's one of the important things to keep in mind. In a lot of the demonstrations I do, I use this sword. That's basically for my convenience. That's the sword that we're really using with this type of a shield. Okay. So again, with this sword, just to demonstrate, if I cut on the right side, okay. Now, first of all, with this type of a sword, we still have this concept of fencing times. However, because the sword is lighter, let me get the shield again, and I'm generating a lot more of the power basically from my arms, Um, basically the fencing times are shorter by nature. So basically, boom, boom. Okay, there's basically, you know, that's basically one fencing time, two fencing times. But let's say I want to double up to the same side without using that thrust to steal that bead. Boom, boom, okay? I'm able to do that because it's a lighter sword. So basically, I can attack on the same side. It's a little bit slower, right? Because I'm doubling up on the same time. But the fencing times are actually, basically the fencing times are closer together. So basically, the clock is running a little bit faster with this sword compared to that sword. Of course, that sword hits a lot harder, and you can use it a lot more effectively from horseback, which is where knights primarily fought from. With this sword, the fencing times are closer, so I can basically double up on the left side without having to use that, use that thrust. So basically, if I make my cut, basically come back, thrust, right, and then from there, double up on the same side. I don't need to do that with this sword. With this sword, I need to do that. So this is something important for you guys to know as far as sword selection and how it's going to impact the way that you fight. Now, both these swords are period. I mean, they're within the period of, where knights were using shields, and you had guys on the ground using shields. This is probably, is something that a person fighting on foot might have preferred, or maybe they didn't, because again, this sword does hit harder, okay? This sword basically needs more prepared blows. So basically from here, if I want to cut to the same side, I'm going to come back, thrust, and I can gain that fencing time and strike from there. So that's basically the stuff I wanted to cover. When we're talking about thrusting with shields, right? We're using full-size shields like that. We're presuming that everybody's in mail armor, okay? So with mail armor, you're not going to basically thrust into the body. So the only place you're really thrusting to is the face, okay? So basically all your thrusts are going to be to the face, which they have to block. I mean, they can't, nobody can take a thrust to the face. They have to block that. So what that does is it forces them to do something, and at the same time, potentially also they might have to blind themselves behind their own shield, because basically if I'm here, because see with this shield I can pretty much stand in an A-frame like this, and I can pretty much take all the blocks on my left side with the shield. I can take most of the blocks on the right side with the sword, right? And basically, a cut is very difficult for a cut to come in between my my shield and my sword, especially if I have it crossed over the top, like this. I have it crossed over the top. My hand's still behind my shield. Unless I open up like this, now I'm vulnerable to that Shido-Ha that just comes right down the middle. But if I'm like this, I'm in a very, very strong defense. The only thing I'm really susceptible to is the thrust, okay? Because basically a thrust can basically come in between that gap and throw it in my face. And what that's going to force me to do is probably bring the shield way over here like this, because basically I'm going to be like, holy shit, he's thrusting me, right? So in that second, I might blind myself where basically I can't see you. And at the same time, because I'm making such a violent action to cover that thrust, I've now opened myself up on this side over here. So that's one of the reasons why that is a great combination. If you cut, thrust, and then basically come around and make the cut to the right side, because basically for that thrust, they're going to bring the shield over like this. They're going to completely open themselves up on that side over there. So that is an ideal place to strike. Okay. So again, just one more time, I want to review the focus of what I wanted to cover in this video. I mentioned it several times, but I've added so much stuff in addition to it that it might become confusing. Basically, if you thrust palm down, you're most likely going to cut to the right side. If you thrust palm up, you're most likely going to cut to the left side. Okay. So what this does is it allows us to, change. So, basically, if I cut to the right, that person is assuming that my next cut's going to go to the left because that's the fastest place for me to go. I can change that up by pulling back, thrusting, and now all of a sudden I can come back to that same side. So you know, it's all part of the deception. You know, as I've said earlier in other videos, all advanced fighting is about deception and misdirection. So if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it. If you're not a member, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys next time.